He wasn't just a deadly shooter with a smooth handle. He was a man of principle, of faith, and unshakable conviction. Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, once known as Chris Jackson, was on the path to NBA superstardom until one decision changed everything. Shunned by the league, misunderstood by the media, but never broken. In this video, we dive deep into the remarkable journey of Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. From his humble beginnings and electric rise in college, to the anthem protests that made headlines across the world, and the life he lives today, modest, faithful, and purpose-driven. Stick around to learn about his net worth, lifestyle, children, wife, and how his story still echoes in the voices of modern athlete activists. Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf was born as Chris Wayne Jackson on March 9, 1969, in Gulfport, Mississippi, a place far from NBA arenas and bright lights. Raised by a single mother, he grew up in grinding poverty. There were days when the family didn't know where their next meal would come from. His father was absent. His mother worked multiple jobs just to keep the lights on. From an early age, Chris displayed signs of something different, not just in his talent, but in his body. He was diagnosed with Tourette's syndrome, a neurological disorder that caused involuntary movements and vocal tics. It made school difficult, social life harder, and basketball nearly impossible for most, but not for Chris. Instead of hiding it, he owned it. On the court where others saw a disorder, he found focus, laser-sharp concentration, repetition, and discipline. Basketball became both an escape and a sanctuary. By the time he was in high school at Gulfport, he was already a local legend. Averaging over 29 points per game, with dazzling handles and deadly shooting, Chris Jackson was no longer just surviving. He was rising. The kid from Gulfport, with nothing but faith, grit, and a jump shot, was about to shock the basketball world. In 1988, Chris Jackson took his talents to Louisiana State University, and from the moment he stepped on the court, he was unstoppable. Under coach Dale Brown, Jackson lit up college basketball like few freshmen ever had. In his very first game, he dropped 48 points, a warning shot to the entire NCAA. By the end of his freshman year, he was averaging 30.2 points per game, the most by a freshman in NCAA history at the time. He wasn't just a scorer, he was a phenomenon. He had a lightning-quick release, elite ball handling, and a calm, focused demeanor that masked his inner battles. And while many players folded under pressure, Jackson rose. He put up over 50 points twice during his LSU career and earned first-team All-American honors twice, a rare feat, especially by a sophomore. He even played alongside a young Shaquille O'Neal, who once said that Jackson was one of the most incredible players he'd ever seen. But after just 2 seasons, Chris declared for the 1990 NBA draft. He had nothing left to prove in college. From a kid with Tourette's to a college superstar, his journey was just beginning. In the 1990 NBA draft, Chris Jackson was selected 3rd overall by the Denver Nuggets, right behind Derek Coleman and Gary Payton. At just 21 years old, he had made it. But this wasn't just another lottery pick. Jackson came in with expectations, and he delivered. He quickly gained a reputation as one of the league's purest shooters. His free throw percentage routinely ranked among the NBA's best, and his quickness made him a nightmare to guard. In 1993, he officially changed his name to Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf after converting to Islam, embracing his faith with quiet intensity. But even amid change, his game stayed sharp. In the 1995-96 season, Mahmoud averaged nearly 20 points per game, shot over 90% from the free throw line, and dropped a career-high 51 points in a single game, one of the season's most impressive performances. He played 6 seasons with the Nuggets, then had stints with the Sacramento Kings and Vancouver Grizzlies. While never voted to an all-star team, many players and coaches quietly respected his skill and discipline. But for all his talent, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf's career took a sharp turn, not because of his play, but because of a stand he took off the court. What happened next would define the rest of his life, and arguably his legacy. In 1996, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf made a quiet but powerful decision. Before every game, during the national anthem, he would remain seated or stand with his head bowed in silent prayer. When asked why, he didn't dodge. He said, quote, "The flag is a symbol of oppression, of tyranny. And as a devout Muslim, he couldn't in good conscience honor what he saw as a contradiction to his beliefs. The backlash was immediate. Fans booed. Commentators criticized him. Politicians called him unpatriotic. And within days, the NBA suspended him, citing a rule that players must stand in a dignified posture during the anthem. The league eventually reached a compromise. Mahmoud would stand, but he could keep his head down and recite a prayer. But the damage was already done. After the controversy, his minutes dropped. His role shrank. And within a couple years, despite still being in his prime, he was out of the NBA. Many believe he was unofficially blackballed, not for his game, but for his beliefs. Long before Colin Kaepernick, long before athlete activism became mainstream, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf paid the price for taking a stand. But even as the world turned its back, Mahmoud never changed who he was. He chose faith over fame, principle over popularity, and for that, he became a symbol far beyond the game of basketball. With the NBA door seemingly closed, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf took his game overseas, and the world welcomed him with open arms. He played in Turkey, Russia, Italy, Japan, and even Saudi Arabia, proving that true talent always finds a stage. Even in his 30s, he was still lighting up scoreboards and earning respect for his consistency, professionalism, and unwavering discipline. Unlike many former NBA stars who chased headlines, Mahmoud kept a low profile. No trash talk, no scandals, just the same humble work ethic that got him out of poverty in Mississippi. He finally retired from professional basketball in the late 2000s, quietly stepping away from the game he loved. But his story didn't end there. Instead of chasing fame, Mahmoud chose service, speaking to youth, mentoring athletes, and becoming a symbol of integrity under pressure. In a world that tried to erase him, he stayed relevant by staying real. Away from the spotlight, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf lives a life defined by faith, discipline, and simplicity. He's been married twice, and though he keeps much of his personal life private, it's known that he's a father of 5. He's fiercely protective of his children's privacy and rarely shares photos or details. For Mahmoud, family is sacred, something to be shielded, not showcased. A devout Muslim since 1991, his faith shapes every part of his routine. He prays 5 times a day, fasts during Ramadan, and keeps a minimalist lifestyle grounded in spiritual values. No flashy cars, no Hollywood homes. He reportedly lives in a modest home in Georgia, drives a basic vehicle, and lives well below his means. To him, life isn't about luxury, it's about purpose. He's also deeply involved in community work, speaking at youth centers, mosques, and schools. His message is always the same: stay disciplined, know your truth, and never sell your soul for applause. Even in retirement, he keeps his physical regimen intense. At nearly 50, he's still training like a pro. Early mornings, jump shots, push-ups, running drills. Not for a contract, but for character. While the world may have forgotten his name for a time, those who meet him remember his humility, intensity, and peace. Because Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf didn't just walk away from fame, he walked towards something greater. For years, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf was seen as a footnote, a what could have been in NBA history. But over time, the world caught up to his courage. When athletes like Colin Kaepernick and others began taking a knee decades later, many pointed back to Abdul-Rauf, who made his silent protest before it was popular, or even safe to do so. He was one of the first athlete activists of the modern era, a man who risked everything not for attention, but for conviction. In 2022, his story was brought to life in the powerful documentary Stand, giving millions a chance to understand the faith, sacrifice, and strength behind his quiet revolution. Younger players now approach him with respect. His name has resurfaced in podcasts, interviews, and tributes, not for his stats, but for his principles. And in today's era of social awareness and athlete empowerment, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf is no longer seen as controversial. He's seen as ahead of his time. His legacy, not just what he did with the ball in his hands, but what he stood for when no one else would. Today, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf has an estimated net worth of around $5 million. While his NBA career was cut short, he earned a solid income from overseas contracts, endorsements, and now speaking engagements and documentary appearances, like his feature in Stand. But unlike many former pros, he doesn't live lavishly. He's invested his time and money into community work, faith-based projects, and mentorship. You won't find him at celebrity parties or luxury resorts. He's more likely to be seen at a local gym, mentoring youth, or speaking about spirituality and discipline. Even in his 50s, he trains daily, reads regularly, and travels to speak, not for fame, but to uplift. In a world chasing noise, Mahmoud continues to live in quiet strength. Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf's story is more than just basketball. It's about standing up for what you believe in, even when the world pushes back. It's about faith, resilience, and the courage to live on your own terms. From a kid battling Tourette's in Mississippi to one of the most principled voices in sports history, Mahmoud's journey reminds us all. True greatness isn't measured in points scored, but in the strength of your convictions. If you found his story inspiring, hit like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments. What do you think about Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf's Stand? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.